Yeah, look, for the longest time, I thought Glen Powell needed to really do something different. And then Hitman came out, and I was like, see, that's something different because it's all different.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm okay with his Becket Redfellow here. Hey, everyone, welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
Hello.
So last night, at time of recording, we did something we don't often do. And that is we screen what has become a thing in cinemas of all stripes, and that is the Mystery Monday movie. Whatever your favorite chain theater calls it, it is a movie that you don't know what it is. They tell you the rating, maybe the runtime,
Yeah.
and it's a movie that has not come out yet. We rarely see those because we normally get either press screenings or open promo screenings before a film comes out. But in this case, we're not getting one of those. So
it was this instead.
They got us into this, which was very nice of them. It's A24, which, okay, we like A24 generally speaking.
Yeah.
Movie opens on the 20th, so this week.
Yes,
It does
Friday.
open this week. It is a remake of a film that you will talk about because you just finished watching the original. It is called How to Make a Killing, but the original was called Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Yes.
From the olden times for all you kids out there. I believe it was black and white.
Yes, I believe 1949.
There you go. With
Sir Alec. Yeah, Sir Alec Guinness.
Yeah, Sir Alec Guinness.
Which in that film, in the film we saw last night, essentially you have a wealthy family, and what kind of sets the old film apart from this is Alec Guinness plays every member of the rich family.
Yes, that's what I understand.
So that's a radical difference, but we'll get into some of that other stuff later.
Yeah, but no. So this one, Glen Powell, rewritten and directed by John Patton Ford. This also has Margaret Qualley, Topher Grace, Ed Harris, Jessica Henwick, Bill Camp, a lot of folks. But it is Glen Powell plays Becket Redfellow, who is the son of a disowned daughter of the Redfellow clan who are uber rich, raised in New Jersey and not on what I assume is Long Island or upstate New York somewhere, on the palatial family estate. But he gets it into his mind that he is the eighth in line for the family fortune. And since they disowned his mom, and after her death and him just kind of puttering away through life, decides that, nah, it's his time. And shenanigans ensue. As you can guess, it is called How to Make a Killing, after all. This movie could have gone a lot of ways. It could have gone straight slapstick. It could have gone super dark. It could have been the weirdest rom-com ever.
Yeah.
But it didn't do any of those things. It kind of did some of them.
I think the closest thing it did was the dark.
Yeah. Well, you can't kill. Well, that many people can't die, really, and not flirt with the dark, generally speaking. But no, so it's an interesting thing. This is all told in flashback because Becket is on death row.
And he is speaking to a priest.
He's speaking to a priest, and he's explaining his life story. And by the end of the film, we figure out why he's on death row. And it is not for what he's telling the priest. But yeah, look, for the longest time, I thought Glen Powell needed to really do something different. And then Hitman came out, and I was like, see, that's something different because it's all different. And so I'm okay with his Becket Redfellow here. I love Margaret Qualley. We both do, generally.
Generally,
I'm now of the opinion that Margaret Qualley, and I'm fairly convinced. I'm not of the opinion. I'm fairly convinced that Margaret Qualley has played the exact same character in every film she's been in. There's nearly no differentiating between them.
I wouldn't go nearly that far, but I would say that this character is not particularly different than sort of what you would expect from her, I guess.
Okay. So yeah, so it's a point of discussion. Topher Grace has a great cameo. Ed Harris has an extended cameo, really. But it's about this guy trying to figure out how to live his life, deciding how to improve his life, and then deciding if that's really what he wants. In a nutshell.
Yeah, and he's sort of revenge for the sins that they have done against his mother,
and
then indirectly him.
Yeah.
So it's a revenge thriller, sort of.
So yes, there is some murder. There is a lot of death. There's some moments that make you think. At no point do you actually, almost at no point do you actually believe that Becket is actually a terrible person. But he's been treated terribly throughout his life, and you almost understand why he does what he does.
Yeah, I would twist that. I would say that it's not that he's not a terrible person, but I think that because he is a terrible person because he kills people, but the reason why he's doing it throughout the film, you sort of can buy into it. You can support that aspect of it,
right?
That what he is doing has in effect been earned by those he is doing it to.
Yes, several of them. Except for Bill Camp's character.
Yeah, but there's always there's not everyone can be, terrible.
Yeah.
There's always even in terrible families, there's typically someone who has a little bit more of a soul, which is, that is the quandary that's put before him at that point. But yeah, I think we understand his motivation, and as an audience are more inclined to support him than we are the others.
Yes. Up until the end. And look, I didn't really care for the end of this at all.
It varies from the original.
I
don't. Well, maybe not to the extent that you might think it might.
The thing is it ends in the parking lot.
Yeah,
but even the bit that leads up to that, that whole sequence doesn't work for me.
Well, it's in the original.
Yeah, but here it just
it works
wrong.
I'll say this: it feels better in the original film, because Isabella as a character is more nuanced in the original film.
Oh, than Margaret Qualley?
Yes, Margaret Qualley's performance, while probably what was asked of her, has a sinister nature to it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
There was never any sort of, even as we're introduced to the character as a child, the child character in the contemporary film is not sympathetic.
No.
Whereas the situation in the original film is quite different. And it gives a certain, it changes things quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. First, you could what you've watched both. How did you like this one? What didn't you like about this one? What did you like?
I think that, speaking of the contemporary film, I thought that it was a little slow. If there was maybe humor in it, but it wasn't ever. It was a very, I guess, intellectual humor and more of a, I guess, a cynicism, sort of dark. Sure. It was never actually funny. And I think there was a part of me that thought it might have worked better if it was a little bit more funny. or had some sort of element that made it.
Right.
I did it need to be slapstick? I don't know if it needed to go that far, but it needed levels. It felt
Mm,
very flat for the entire film, or it kind of hits a point and just kind of moves along. I didn't dislike it, but I felt like that there probably was potential there that wasn't achieved,
right.
and so that's kind of why I was interested in going back and watching the original. And it was a film that I was aware of. In fact, I sad to admit that I owned it, but I hadn't watched it.
Uh,
But hey, these things happen. It was part of the Criterion collection, and so there's backlog of things that I haven't really watched everything of. But so it seemed like a great opportunity to go and see what the original was about, and they are quite similar. Obviously, the original takes place in England, so you're dealing with a different social structure, but not radically different than the wealthy hierarchy that exists in America.
yeah.
Obviously, the time period differences require changes. Some work better than others, but I wouldn't say it's a horrible adaptation in that in sense. But there is an amusing quality to the original in that you do have one actor who's playing all these rich people, um, and he is playing them all differently. It is sort of a masterclass in that, although I don't know that he's doing radical extremes. They're all distinct, but they're not
Right.
necessarily a wide spectrum because they're all sort of rich people who
Well,
are well mannered
there is a
and
dukedom
yes, there's a
involved. So,
dukedom.
probably a little inbreeding there
Yeah,
amongst your
probably.
English aristocracy.
Sure, yeah,
So,
yeah. They don't really go into although no, yeah, they don't really go into that element, but yes. Um, so the Britishness of it wouldn't have translated exactly to America, but it's not that clumsy of a again. But I think the one thing that is different is the relationship that he does have with Isabella through in both films is
mm,
quite different. Um, he Yes, his so that is it's dramatically different, I would say, actually, in the two, as far as the motivations and how the two characters interact and the role that they play in each other's lives. The way that is in the original compared to the new film, I think, is a little more interesting, and it puts a little more weight um, on the main character and on his part of what happens, I guess.
right.
In the new film, he's more distant and not, she's invading his life, where that is not necessarily the case in the original. And I think ultimately, in the end, that plays out differently and better, in my opinion. I was shocked tone wise; they're not that different. The original isn't as slapsticky as I thought it might be. It does play it fairly straight. It doesn't really go out of its way to point to the fact that Alec Guinness is playing all these characters. It's not really a laugh out loud comedy either. But the nuances of the original, I think, and some of the cultural elements of the original, um, where he has to actually go through 12 people,
Oh God.
is handled in a different way that maybe is more effective. But it is interesting to see how much the modern interpretation relies upon the original script. There's no priest in the original. It's simply his memoir that he's writing his last few hours before he is executed. Um, so it's the same sort of thing where he's just narrating everything. It's just they don't cut to scenes where he's talking to someone about it.
Right.
And in a way, the priest element probably makes the contemporary film a little more realistic
Yeah.
in that regard, and it allows for there to be moments where they interact throughout the story in the present rather than constantly staying in the past, which is an interesting change. I think ultimately I prefer the original, but not by as much as I thought I would. Um, and I just feel like, they're well, what I thought was interesting is we got a trailer before this film for Ready or Not 2,
Yes.
which to me, if you haven't seen Ready or Not, it involves a rich family who uh, basically ends up, the tradition wise, they play a game or whatnot and before a wedding, and
Bad things happen.
bad things happen. And so it's a what, normal person versus the upper class, middle
Yep.
class versus upper class sort of thing. Um, and I think that film is actually very enjoyable, and the trailer for the new film looks like more of the same, which may or not, you know, be a good thing. But
Right.
I think that was, if you that was the way to make this film fun, was it would be to take on that sort of tone, the same tone that had. I mean,
It's
that
a little more
clearly
slapstick.
very
Not
much more
not
slapstick,
slapstick,
but no,
but
but it just humorous. Uh, there and all the like. It's nuance, and it's a step to the left or whatever. It's
yeah.
very close. This film takes itself maybe too seriously, while also kind of winking at you.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if it winked at us more and took its less seriously, it would have been more enjoyable. Um, as it is, it's kind of a hard movie to really enjoy, or hard to root for anyone. Um, and then that always makes for an interesting watch, but not necessarily a rewarding watch.
Yeah.
Um, because I really, I mean, if you're going to latch on to characters, I don't know that there were any characters I really feel like latching on in this film. There's always innocent bystanders who, or sort of bystanders, or innocent people who get collateral damage, sort of thing.
Yep.
Um, and you can root for them somewhat, but um, so I just, yeah, I think the film for me was just a little too slow and a little too serious. Um, and if they wanted it to be considered more comedic and more entertaining, I think they needed to spice things up in a different way, rather than being like really dark, cynical, and ironic at times.
Yep.
A little more literally, yeah, or I guess, less in the head, more in the visual. I guess I don't. I
Right.
mean, I don't know how to put it, but it's just for me, kind of, it missed the mark.
Yeah, it is close. There was some enjoyable stuff here, and then there's some stuff where yeah, it is slow. It's not long,
No,
which
actually, one thing that is interesting is the whole Ed Harris, that scene in the modern film could be, and is probably as close as it comes to being sort of that madcap silliness.
mhm,
And that isn't in the original film at all. It's radically different. So to me, there's evidence of them wanting to sort of play with it a
yeah,
little bit and maybe give it, but it doesn't come through for most of the film.
yeah. That's the downside of it, is it doesn't really commit to any one approach enough to call it a thing.
Yeah, because there is a tongue in cheek element, but it's not fun.
No,
It's
it's
you know
it's almost like we came out of this, and one of the things I said is that I was like, it's nice that the Knives Out franchise has kind of brought the wacky whodunity kind of film back. And I feel like this was greenlit after the first Knives Out, and they were just kind of working toward getting
maybe.
it made. But it's not, so you can kind of see the influence a little bit,
Well, yeah, I
but
think
it's not as fun.
yeah. Well, and you don't have the character who's trying to unravel anything. You have a character who's basically just telling a story, so the mystery of it isn't quite as involving. The
No.
characters aren't nearly as. I mean, part of the thing that makes the Knives Out films work is the casts,
Yeah.
and this does have a great cast, but excuse me. those films allow their characters to be more distinct, and you're
There's
with
enough
them.
time for you to get to know them enough to go,
Yes.
yes, you don't need to be alive.
Yeah, you're with them in a
Or I
longer,
wish you weren't alive.
whereas a lot, I mean, look, the time we spend with some of the rich people that are oft in this version of the film, they're not great people, and it doesn't take long to say, yeah, I don't mind. But I think the Knives Out allows them to be a little more of a person.
Yeah.
Before, like, this is it was more just like, oh, they're just that version of a rich person, or that version of a,
Yeah.
it's the party boy, or it's the evangelist, or it's the, it was very, it wasn't, they weren't, and I don't know that Knives Out characters feel completely real, but they at least feel like they are real in the world in which they exist, or
Mhm.
they at least, the characters are flamboyant in a way that kind of matches the way that the other characters are.
Yeah.
There's a bigness to those characters, where in this film that those characters, there's not that same sort of presence.
Yeah. It's like first up, second up,
Yeah,
third up,
yeah,
next in
it's
line. It's
yeah,
like,
and there's very little exception to that.
so,
And that's pretty true of the original as well. I think that would be a weakness that kind of exists in the original narrative. That we've seen how it can be done better, and that's part of, and again, yes, the Knives Out films, The Ready or Not, and not that I put those two films probably on the same level. The Ready or Not is not remotely as intellectual. It's certainly clever and fun, and
yeah.
10 times as violent, but
Well, it embraces what it is.
yes,
And absolutely says, this is what we're going for. And it absolutely grabs it and gives it to you.
yes, and for those reasons, that's why I would say I love that, the first Ready or Not film I actually really enjoy.
Oh yeah.
You know,
But
uh,
that's what How to Make a Killing lacks.
yeah, whatever those films have, and a lot of it has to do with character rather than, I think the actors in this film are all talented.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really down to the fact that you were using people who couldn't give us that film. I think that film just was never intended to go there, and I think maybe it should have.
Yeah.
And it's hard because is it just because that's the film I wanted it to be, and I can't judge this film based on what it is? I don't think so. I was willing to take this film as however it came at me. Um, in my head, I wasn't thinking, oh, when the Ready or Not trailer played, I didn't think, oh, I hope that's what this movie is. I didn't think that at all.
No, I didn't
Um,
either. And like I
you
said, I
know,
didn't know this was a remake
yeah,
until we came out.
and I only, it was conversing with some other people where it was like, oh yes, okay, I know what the film that this was, and it does at the end have the, based on sort of, or inspired by this film, and anyway, but in this case, I mean, yes, I think the original was better, but is it leaps and bounds better? I think probably not, but it is better, and maybe sticking to the structure of the original in the ways that this didn't work. I mean, there were choices that both films make that make them radically different pictures, and I don't know that either of them would be, high on my list of
Right.
films that I really, whodunit films or murder films, or I don't know, whatever film this falls into. But
Yeah.
I feel like I should have liked How to Make a Killing more than I did, and that's why I'm kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
I
mean, I wouldn't tell people not to see it.
No, but I wouldn't. I don't feel like it's going to. It's certainly not a film that is going to have a great influence on other films or the industry, or, I mean, Knives Out did
Yeah.
and does.
Yeah.
Whether you like the film or not, it had a dramatic impact on, the whodunit and how you can do it in a contemporary way. Yeah, so kind of mixed
Yeah.
positive, I guess, but it's really sullen and dour. It's just, I don't know. It's just really so moody that you I guess I would prefer if it wasn't as that way.
Yeah. So there you go. So mixed positive There, that's probably the best way to put it. So yes, How to Make a Killing in theaters this Friday, the 20th, from A24.
And
You've listened, you can make
yeah.
your own decision.
Well, and I would say if you do see the film, it would be interesting. I think you would find it an interesting experience to go back and watch the original. It is available for free on Tubi at the moment, which is where I watched it. Which unfortunately the commercials are a little annoying because there's such a time jump, an aesthetic jump. But made it easier than trying to dig out where my old DVD is somewhere. But to be honest, anyway, but. I do think they're an interesting thing to compare, and I do think that there is much to be learned by watching the two different versions of the film and just seeing how some of the slight nuances of character can have a dramatic change on how satisfying something is at the end, or even how surprising some things are at the end.
Yeah. So there you go. Next week, we do have another screening of Hoppers.
Yes.
So we'll see if this animated is that
it's Pixar.
It's Pixar. So hoping. And then we have I can't wait actually, because the week after that we have Project Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. And then we got a couple other ones scattered hither and yon in there. And whatnot, but we'll get to those. So yeah, How to Make a Killing in theaters this Friday. Check it out. I'm going to go back and here hopefully in the next day or two then and watch Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Yeah.
And check that out. Maybe we'll have to revisit that. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, Hoppers next week. Project Hail Mary, another Andy Weir adaptation. So we'll see how that goes. And don't forget to like us, follow us on social media, go to the website, vsmoviepodcast.com. Check out our stuff there. Follow us on all the social medias. You know how that works. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe. That would be great. Give us some feedback to let us know what you think. Are we right, wrong? Did we miss something? Did we fail to consider something? Did we miss a movie that you didn't? Because that happens. There's a lot of movies out there and we cannot possibly see them all. Till we talk to you again, be good. Stay safe. I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
Hey, folks.
And we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.